I'm currently looking at a spreadsheet made up of 22 tabs. No, wait, come back. There is a point. This is Game Discover Co.'s freely available October 2025 Steam Next Fest top games analysis data. Game Discover Co. is a great resource for stuff like this, and for facts like this one. There were around 2,900 demos included in the October 2025 Steam Next Fest. That's a lot. And there's a lot we could pull from this, but I found one thing in particular of interest. So, a quiz. Which game showcased in Steam Next Fest saw the biggest increase in followers and wish lists? Take a note. We'll come back to that later. This was the first Next Fest that I've properly taken part in. Why? Because I recently got a Steam Deck, which is either the best or worst decision I've ever made. Now, I'll probably cover the whole Steam Deck thing in an episode in the future, so we'll put that to one side for one moment. I played 19 demos, which for me is a lot. Now we're going to get to talking about as many of them as possible, and that might take a while, but for now there's one game I want to focus on. The game I played during Next Fest that I like the best, the game that stopped me in my tracks, tested me the most, and still left me with the broadest, dumbest smile. It's a game about a turnip with arms climbing a mountain. Let's talk about that, and to the person that made it. Hi, I'm Andrew. Welcome to Dialogue Tree. This is episode 26, Strong Roots. Luke Sanderson on Turnip Mountain and the best of Steam Next Fest. Turnip Mountain is a platform climbing game rendered in striking black and white pixel art, with a soundtrack composed of pure energy, and an interesting backstory. Also, you are a turnip with arms, and you control those arms independently, each arm mapped to an analog stick. You need to climb. So, how do you do that? Well, that is the game. You reach up with the left stick, and you grab hold of a surface with the left trigger. Pull back on that stick to pull yourself up. Then reach up with the right stick and grab hold of the surface with the right trigger. Pull back on that stick to pull yourself up. You can see some coins over there, so over there you go. There's a gap to traverse. Now you might let go with one arm and swing yourself over, or you might quickly intuit that you can fling yourself up, down, sideways, by flicking both sticks in the opposite direction to which you want to travel and letting go of the triggers. And when you do any of those things, you are hooked. Turnip Mountain got me straight away. The presentation is deliberately minimal, but striking and appealing. The music is the same, buzzing away in a way that left me completely buzzing. But none of that matters if this unique, unusual, challenging control scheme doesn't hit. But hit it does. It might sound like an entry in the current trend for games featuring challenging inputs, where just getting around is made as difficult and frustrating as possible. But to me, at least, it wasn't. The controls felt as natural as they could for something so uncommon, and again, for me, unexpectedly, incredibly fun. I could immediately see how much scope there was for satisfying platform challenges, the multiple routes the demo hints at suggesting a flexibility of design you might not expect from a 2D game. I raced through this demo as quickly as I could, just loving throwing myself around with abandon. Hopefully, that's enough to intrigue you, to give this big game about a tiny vegetable a chance. But if it doesn't, I think this will.
Hello, my name is Luke Sanderson. I'm the developer of Turnip Mountain.
Luke Sanderson, as you've heard, is the developer behind Turnip Mountain. I reached out to him about talking about his game, his approach, influences, his work in the games industry, and the interesting history of his game about a climbing turnip. We also talked about some of the games that we both played during Next Fest. Now, I'm going to go over everything I played later in the episode, and those reviews are timestamped in the show notes. But for now, let's talk to Luke. Luke, hi. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. How are you? How's your week been so far?
I'm great, thanks. Yeah, my week has been short. It's only Tuesday. No, it's going all right. Work's been going fine. I've been catching up on some Steam Next Fest demos and having a look and seeing how Turnip's doing, really.
Great answers, because those are two things we're going to be talking about today. We are going to be talking about a few things, including that recent Steam Next Fest and the game that you are currently making. But first, with developer interviews that I do on Dialogue Tree, I think it's nice to get to know a little bit more about you and about your gaming history. I can remember the first games that I played, but I don't think that I consciously became a gamer in the sense that it became like an active interest and hobby until much later. Now, do you have a moment in your life like that where you feel that you sort of like became a gamer? Or is there one game that took games from like distraction to active interest? Or was it just the first game you played? Was that the moment for you?
I think it was, yeah, from the very beginning, first game I played. I mean, I think from the point I gained consciousness, so what, 4 or 5, Mario 64 just came out, and obviously that just blew me away. It's always been video games. It's never been a point of I'll just now I'll take it seriously. I've just always played them forever, really.
Have you gone back to Mario 64 since?
I finish it like every year. It's a great game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, it's absolutely cracking. Yeah,
amazing. I haven't played it for quite a few years. How does it? I'm guessing you think it holds up pretty well.
I think it does. The problem is that whenever I say, "Oh yeah, give it a go," they complain about the camera or just little nitpicks. It doesn't matter, man. The game still feels great to play. It's so good. So
do you think it does anything better than recent 3D Mario games do?
It's certainly less fluff.
Okay.
I think that's going to be a common theme of games I make or games we talk about, is that I don't like too much fluff around the gameplay. Mario 64, you literally jump in and you're playing the game, whereas Odyssey or I don't know, Galaxies, Sunshine, it's a bit more. There's story around it, and you have to unlock power-ups as you go through. Mario 64, you start the game off and you have everything, every tool you need from the get-go, and you get better by playing it, which is great.
That does sound like it has been an influence on what you do.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice to hear. Cool. Speaking about what you do, you are making a game called Turnip Mountain. Would you like to tell us a little bit about that game?
Yes, I'd love to. Turnip Mountain is a twin-stick platformer. It's been really hard trying to describe what genre it is, but yeah, parkour climbing game, really. You're a turnip with 2 arms, and you use a stick for each arm to climb a mountain. And that is the gist of it, really.
I like it. Yeah, that's a simple explanation for a game that I've been finding it hard to describe. As soon as you see it in motion, or as soon as you get your hands on it, it makes total sense. And
yes.
Part of why I liked it, and I'm guessing that's intentional. So, am I right in thinking it's an expansion on a game that you made for Playdate?
So it's a bit of a funny story that I started Turnip Mountain back in right at the end of 2022, I think. So a good long while ago. And as I was making it, I got a Playdate for my birthday, and I thought, oh, what would be great on this Turnip Mountain, because Turnip Mountain is almost monochrome. It's got only 3 or 4 colors, mostly black and white, and Playdate screen is black and white. And it's got a crank, and I thought, we could probably change the control scheme enough so that Turnip Mountain could work on this. So yeah, I just built a little prototype of Turnip Mountain on that, and then got approached by Panic, who made the Playdate, and they said, yes, we'd love a version of this for our Season 2, and the rest is history. So Tiny Turnip started later and finished earlier. It took me about 6 months to make that one, whereas I'm still working on Turnip Mountain. So I'm not sure what that says.
What is the experience of developing for the Playdate like?
Oh, it's an absolute joy. It really is. Because it's, every Playdate is the same. You get, a 400 by 240 screen. They're all 1-bit. They all, like a console, they all perform exactly the same. So you don't have to worry too much about UI layouts or translating to different languages, because it's a mostly English-speaking console, really. No, it's an absolute joy. And being held back by the console in terms of power. Like, it has no GPU, so I can't really rotate things or scale things or do lots of things. So there's only really one way of doing things. And yeah, that was super nice to just sit down. If I want to make a particle system in Game Maker, I'd say, for example, I could make a sprite sheet of all the particles and play that, or I can make an actual particle system that creates the particles on the fly. But particles can't work on Playdate; it would just crash and burn. So you get a sprite sheet and that's it, and it just works fine.
Mm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like limitation breeding
Yes.
creativity. If you don't have endless scope, you have to focus on the tools that you've got to hand and doing what you can do with that.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great. It's one of the virtues of the Playdate. Just by limiting people to these very fixed set of specs.
Yes.
And forcing people to be creative within that.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. Yeah. Are you planning to make any more games for the Playdate?
I am looking to. I'm sort of. I'm sort of looking at a couple of prototypes I could be doing. One is very Playdate centric, would only work on it, and the other is completely non-Playdate centric. It could work on any sort of console. So I'm sort of going, do I want to go kooky and weird like Turnip again, or something more traditional? I'm sort of playing around, but nothing in development actively right now.
Okay. Well, so that's like the timeline sort of established there. But to rewind just a little bit, what was like the genesis of Tiny Turnip, Tiny Mountain? Like what was the inspiration for them? What was the light bulb moment for these games?
God, this is years and years ago now. I think I was just holding a controller, and I thought, every game you're playing it with left stick is move and A buttons jump, and I don't know, X buttons hit. I'm like, okay, that's fun. Like, what can you do with the controller? And just started playing with the control sticks, and I thought, hey, this would be fun. It just sort of happened. I don't know how to explain it really. I just thought, okay, let's give it a go. Let's have a hand that can move around, and then you can grab, and then the pulling just sort of happened naturally, almost as an accident. And then as soon as that happened, I it broke and barely working. But as soon as I pulled myself up by reaching up, grabbing, and pulling the control stick down to pull myself up, I thought, oh, there's something here. Okay. And the game sort of made itself after that. Lots of the puzzles and lots of the gameplay decisions were made from just playing it, which is very odd, because I still haven't finished it. I'm still figuring out where it's going and all that. So I'm sort of just following the game rather than designing it from the outset.
I found it very intuitive. I realised that I could throw myself before the game tells you that you can.
Yes.
Which was lovely. I thought, I've discovered something here. Then the game tells you. I was like, okay, I'm not as smart as I think I am. Yeah, I can totally see why. Yeah, how like the game led you from that point. It sounds very odd to describe it to someone, but it feels so natural when you've got it in hand. Even though there's an initial learning curve, because you are sort of unlearning years of gaming.
Yes.
To remap your brain to moving arms with sticks, but it does just make sense.
Yeah, I feel like I've made it for people who've played loads and loads of games, and they can pick up a controller and they say, okay, this is a RPG, this is an action game, this is a racing game, and you sort of think you know what you're going to play, and then you pick up Turnip, you're like, oh, okay, I've got to relearn everything. Cool. I think that's quite a nice feeling I get. When you said it was intuitive to play, I mean, I've been watching all sorts of streams and YouTube videos of Turnip over the Next Fest, and some people get it straight away, and some people struggle in the first run and give up. It's a very, very Marmite game in that regard.
That seems to be a thing with climbing games that we will come on to shortly. So, am I right in thinking that you work in the games industry?
Yes, I've been working in mobile games for, I think, 6 years now, even. So yeah, I mean, my job mostly revolves around making prototypes for mobile games in about 2 to 4 weeks, just to test out the gameplay, really, and then we chuck it on the market, and we get metrics on how many downloads it gets, how long people play for, if it's worth building the game up proper.
Okay. Are there any experiences that you've had in the years that you have been working in the industry that have influenced how you've approached Turnip Mountain, like for better or for worse?
I suppose Turnip is the antithesis of everything I do at work, really. Um, Mobile game development is fairly safe, I find, because there are certain themes and genres that the player expect, like puzzle games, for example, or idle games, and you can only really play around with those genres without completely reinventing the wheel. So, and also because I work in a team, my code has to be clean, and the code base for Turnip is an absolute mess. So it's my sort of, I can go home from work, just hit the keyboard and make something fun.
How many comments are there in the code of you shouting at yourself or saying "fix this later"?
That would presume there are comments.
Fair point. So coming back to climbing games, there has been an upswing of climbing games in the last few years. I don't think was sort of present before. I might be wrong, but so we had in 2023 there was Jusant, and we've had Peak come out this year, and Cairn is on its way. So there's also been a number of games released where the movement in the game is part of the game. Now, do you think there's a reason why climbing games have become sort of an emerging trend?
I'd say the obvious answer is the new Zelda's Breath of the Wild.
Okay.
Because in that one you can climb every wall. But obviously in that game, the gameplay of climbing walls isn't really gameplay. You're just holding up on the control stick. But, it was such an influential game, Breath of the Wild, that I'm not surprised that more games are doing climbing. Same with the Uncharted's as well, and Last of Us's and all that. They've got, climbing has just become a part of like AAA gaming, and I think it's so prevalent in those games now. It's completely unsurprising that indie developers are thinking, how do we build on that?
With games that have sort of more challenging control schemes, or at least that make you think about movement more keenly. I'm thinking of Bennett Foddy.
Yep.
I'm thinking of something like Death Stranding.
Yep.
Do you think there's a reason why games like that have become more common? Do you think there's a reason why that seems to be an emerging trend?
Games with odd controls like that. I suppose, the upswing of rage games. So you said Bennett Foddy, and there's also Jump King and all that.
Yeah.
I suppose a good rage game can be defined by, awkward controls and extreme punishment for failing.
Yep.
And I suppose in that regard, Turnip has the awkward controls, but they're not awkward for awkward's sake. I hope. I hope everyone thinks that, maybe. And I've made it extremely unpunishing, so there's no lives, no nothing. Sort of like Celeste. You can just try again. So I hope it's not a rage game. But yeah, there's definitely an upswing of those kind of games recently, and I think that's, I think it's just indie games trying to play around with the genre a bit more. Even Death Stranding, I wouldn't say that's odd controls. I mean, you still use the triggers to sort of balance yourself, but compare it to something like Baby Steps, which came out recently. That is a lot more control centric, and I enjoyed it a lot more than Death Stranding. So I'm not sure what that says.
Okay, it is interesting that games where you are being asked to think about movement and adapt to a more challenging means of getting around. I just find it interesting that has become that's an emerging genre, that's a trend that people are gravitating towards, that people are sort of happy to be frustrated by the basics.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I didn't find your game frustrating for frustrating's sake. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up Celeste, because that's one of the first things that came to mind. With instant respawn, no punishment, it feels like a game that wants you to succeed.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah. I mean, as much as I like these rage games like Foddy, Jump King, I've never actually finished any of them, because after 20 minutes I want to throw the controller at the wall.
Yeah.
And I'd rather leave the player feeling nice after playing my game. So
that's a nice intention. That's a nice noble aim, not wanting to like piss off your player.
Yeah.
So yeah, speaking of the movement, it struck me like this classic thing being easy to pick up and difficult to master. How do you work to achieve that? Like, what questions do you have to ask of yourself, and what decisions do you need to make in order to balance sort of accessibility with a high skill ceiling?
Yeah, it's an odd one with this one, because you can only get better by playing it. I think. I mean, obviously, some people pick it up and they get it straight away and all that, but to play at the level that I do when I go through the levels, or there's a couple of speedrunners on the Discord who just go crazy over it. Um, yeah, you really, really have to just play it a lot and just get used to the controls. It's a rewiring of how we think we play games. It's more or less just thinking as well, what level am I developing? So level one, you obviously, each room teaches you something. So how to climb vertically, how to climb horizontally, how to roll, just how to move a bit more as you go on. But as you go on through the game, uh, just thinking, how do I teach a mechanic, like a new mechanic? So every level has a new mechanic. There could be wind, or there's rain, there's snow, there's all sorts. Um, and it's just thinking how to teach that to the player in a nice environment, and then slowly raising it up in the difficulty, but not ever being punishing. And just an insane amount of playtesting, really. That's the best way of doing it. That first level, I've shown that the first level in the demo at events all over England. And it's changed so much. If I look at old videos, I'm thinking, oh, that's a terrible wall placement. Oh, there should be a block there. What was I thinking? So that first level has been fine-tuned like nothing else.
Cool. I was going to ask about playtesters. Yeah, I presume you have people playtesting it? How many people have you do you have doing this?
I mean, it is just me making the game and entirely, apart from the music, which is by Isabel Chiming. Done a fantastic job. But yeah, playtesting is literally just from events, really, which is really good because people, at events they want to sit down, play a game, and they get it, and then they want to go on to another game because there are thousands of games to show at these events. So it's a really good litmus test of if someone gets it and then they give up straight away, they just sort of get frustrated and walk away. I'm thinking, okay, that's a pain point in the level. I should fix that bit up for sure. But other than that, not many actual playtesters as I'm developing. I mean, the last few levels, I like no one's played them yet, so I'm using common sense there. But I'm sure during the end of development, I'll need to get some playtesters in for sure.
Sure. It feels really refined at this point.
Thank you.
If that's worth anything. You mentioned the music there and Isabel Chiming. I was going to ask you about that. It is great. I love it. Have you worked with her before? Like, what was that process like?
I worked with her on Tiny Turnip as well, but considering that came out before this one, I'm not sure if it's working with her before or after. I have no idea.
Sure.
But no, the process literally, I just found her on YouTube. And I said, your music is great. Do you want to do some music for this game? And she said yes. And then we've been working together ever since. I find that her music, it's sort of like I have an idea for a level. Like there's a level that's like a factory, for example. And as I'm making it, she gives me the music, and it does shape how the level feels and how I make the level because I trust in her music to set a certain vibe and mood, and it does. So I just go with the flow.
I listened to your interview on the Playdate podcast, and you mentioned how there was a lot of talk about sort of the Metroidvania influence on the game.
Yes.
Now, I didn't pick up on that in the demo. I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit more. How does the Metroidvania influence come through in the full game?
So Turnip Mountain is a level-based platformer like Celeste, whereas Tiny Turnip is a full-blown Metroidvania. So it's an entirely different game, different map.
Okay.
Because there's no two control sticks, there's a different control scheme. So it's sort of like a mini version of Turnip Mountain, except it's bigger. I don't know how it happened, but Tiny Turnip is definitely bigger than Turnip Mountain. So yeah, different gameplay styles entirely. It's more as I'm making Turnip Mountain, I'm making these levels. I'm thinking, God, could this work as a Metroidvania? But I don't want to make the whole game up from scratch and then, obviously derail the whole project. So when I had the chance to work on Tiny Turnip, I thought, yeah, go on. Then I'll all the things are these. Could I have done this? Should I have done this on Turnip Mountain? I put into Tiny Turnip. So, and I think it worked out quite well. It's sort of like a B-side to Turnip Mountain, really. All the different things that could have been is in that.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
Would you like to go back to that genre? Is that something you can see yourself doing in the future?
Metroidvanias? Yeah, I do like them. I really do like them. apparently there's some sort of fatigue going on. Everyone's sick of them, but I love them. I can play them all day.
Everyone is sick of everything.
Yeah.
As it was Metroidvanias, now it's like deck building roguelikes.
Can't win, can you?
No.
No, let's go back to Metroidvanias. Tiny Turnip's a funny one is that Metroidvanias are usually fairly movement based, the 2D ones anyway. Whereas obviously Tiny Turnip is movement based, but it's quite slow, quite methodical because you're trying to place your hands carefully. So it's not exactly a fast paced game, and because of that, it's quite dense, thick, small world because you're moving quite slowly through it. So in the future, I'd like to make a bit of a faster game, one that's not so tough to play because you have to make every move, every grab all the time. So yeah, in the future, I'd love to, but nothing planned yet.
Sure. I feel like I have to ask the obvious question here. Do you have any favourite Metroidvanias? Do you have a top 3?
Oh, good. Aria of Sorrow, probably the best one. That's really good. I could be basic and say Super Metroid, but I've not played that for like 15 years. So,
okay.
Yeah, the Castlevanias are great. God, I'm going to kick myself later on. There's some cracking ones, am I? Shadow Complex, why not? Great game.
I don't know that one.
It's published by Epic Games or Chair or something. I don't know. It came out 2012. I'm going to guess. It's a Metroidvania, but 2.5D, and you can shoot into the background.
Oh, cool.
It's got voice acting. It's got really really quality game. I'm pretty sure you can get it on Steam. It's been remastered, and I might even be free on Epic Launcher. So give that a look.
I'll check that out. Thank you for the recommendation. Cool.
No worries.
Well, speaking of Steam, that's great transition. You've just come out of Steam Next Fest,
Yes.
which was your first with the demo of Turnip Mountain. I'm curious, like, what is the process of working with Steam like in a Next Fest? Do you have to submit the game for inclusion?
Yes, yeah. So a good few months before, I think by I'm going to guess July or August, I had to say I want to be in October's Next Fest, and then I didn't have to do too much for the page because the demo already existed.
Okay.
So I literally the night before Next Fest started, I just updated the demo, and that now worked fine. But yeah, other than that, you just put it on there, put it on the socials that I had made a new demo, go play it, and then it sort of went from there.
Cool. My question was going to be, how do you go about creating a demo for a game when you're in the midst of working on it? But you've answered that there. Thank you. I know that Next Fest has only just finished, but are you, as a developer, are you able to get good metrics out of it? Like, are you able to get good feedback on the demo? Like, is it would you say it's like a worthwhile enterprise, like, for you?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the most important metric I think still is wish lists, seeing how many people are invested in the game. That's very good, but also you can get to see how long people play the demo for, how many people are playing at the same time, things like that. Yeah, very, very helpful. I don't see any reason not to go into Next Fest before releasing.
Cool. Oh, that's good to know. So speaking of the game, is there a roadmap for it? Like, what's next in terms of development? Do you have a release date or window in mind that you're able to share?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm hoping to get it out by the end of December this year.
Okay.
This year, he says. Which is funny because on the Steam page, because I started it in 2022 and I put the initial release date as February 2023, which is obviously come and gone. So I'm saying December 2025 as a sort of method to get me to actually finish the game off. And all I have to do is finish up the last level, a couple of cutscenes maybe, and then achievements. and then finish off the rest of the music. So there's some stuff left, but the actual the brunt of the game is finished, which is good enough.
Sounds easy, he says, with absolutely no idea of what is involved in game development. By my watch, that means you've got probably about 6 weeks. I don't know if I should vocalize that, but I'm sure that's fine, right?
I probably can. I can probably finish off that last level if I just sat down for, I don't know, 3 or 4 days. Just bash it out. I have periods of working on it, non-stop, and there's some periods. There was at some point last year I didn't work on it for 6 months. I just come off and on it. So, but I've told myself it's coming out this year, or I'll be very upset with myself.
Well, best of luck with that. Like I say, I had a great time playing it. I think anyone who does will have the same experience. So lastly, I'd just like to throw to you to plug anything you want to plug. Like, how can people engage with the game online? Is there anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, the demo for Turnip Mountain is still on Steam. It's still up, regardless of Next Fest finishing, so give it a go. When the full game comes out, I'll release a version with Tiny Turnip, which is the Playdate exclusive version, so you can get the file for that and play it on your computer. So you can get both versions of Tiny Turnip and Turnip Mountain on PC.
Great, thank you, Luke. I think that seems like a good time to take a break, and when we come back, we will talk about some of the games that we've been playing in Steam Next Fest.
Woo!
We are back from the break, and I am still here with Luke Sanderson, the developer of Turnip Mountain. We are going to talk about some of the games that we have been playing in the most recent Steam Next Fest. Now, there is one game that we have both played. Luke, I was wondering if you could tell us more about this one and your impressions on it.
Yeah, this is Cairn. I hope that's how you pronounce it. Cairn.
That's how I've been saying it. Cairn. Yeah,
Cairn,
let's go with
exactly. Yeah, Cairn is a climbing game. So I've obviously played it because I'm making Turnip. And it's by the people who made Fury, I think. Is that right?
I had no... Really?
Yeah, I think so.
I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. And I liked Fury, so I thought I would give it a go. The Game Bakers or something like that, yes.
Yeah.
So it's a climbing game. You have stamina as you climb. You can put down, another word, Python or Piton?
Now that I know, it's pitons.
Is it Piton? Oh, I've been saying it wrong all this time. Pitons, right. You're putting down pitons to get your stamina back. You can rest and cook and all that. So, yeah, it seems very, very different from Turnip, but I enjoyed the demo. But what did you think of it?
Yeah, I liked it. I went into it, to me, it felt like it had a bit of a reputation, even though it's just a demo, as being like quite a hardcore game, like harsh and unforgiving. And I didn't. I can see why. It is. You have to be very precise, but I found it more welcoming and like easy to get started with than I thought it would. And the movement is great. It felt good to really sort of like micromanaging your limbs.
Yes.
Is a weird gameplay hook, and something I'd never thought I would say felt good, but it did. Also, the art style thought it was
Gorgeous.
great.
Yeah.
It just it's really obvious reference point, but it reminded me of Wind Waker. It's really like lovely cell shading. I played a lot of demos, and this is one I didn't finish. But I got to the point where I thought, okay, I'm going to put this down because I think I probably am going to get this when it comes out. I did like the sort of more like, I don't know, hardcore element of it. You have to manage like everything about your climb. I think that's a good way of doing it, and it didn't feel too much like busy work, like I feel some simulation games can be, or some like resource management games can be. I also liked and am intrigued by how the main character is bandaged up quite so extensively. That sort of hinted at something else going on here. I don't know if that's the case. I might be misreading it. It really reminded me of a game I played called Boomerang X. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a first-person action game based around a boomerang and traversing with it, and it's kind of this extreme, insane parkour game. But first-person, it's kind of similar to Neon White, but non sort of linear racetracks. It's more combat-based. You're mostly sort of locked into these kill rooms, and you've got to use this quite like mad movement mechanics to get around. And the character in that is like bandaged up, like this character in Ken. It reminded me of that. So I don't know if there's that some sort of like similar weird like dark fantasy thing going on, but I guess we'll see in the final game. There's something I meant to ask you in our interview. Like, are you a climber? Do you have any experience with climbing?
I used to climb when I was a kid, and like when I was 12, I went to climbing classes. I wasn't like a big climber or anything like that. I sort of hated it, I'll be honest.
No.
And then I went climbing again last month, and Now I'm older and fatter, and I don't like it. So
You like it even less.
exactly. No, I'm not a very I'm not a climber. No.
Okay. You're making like the version of climbing that you're making the version of climbing that you wish existed
Exactly.
in the real world.
Yeah, yeah. Infinite stamina. You can just go crazy, fly around the place. Why not?
Yeah, sounds perfect.
Yeah.
So do you think you'll be picking up Ken when it comes out?
Yeah. I think I will. Um, I think there's a lot more that the game has to show us than what's in the demo, because you can rest in your tent, for example, and you can. Well, I was intrigued by, or you can potentially cook. You can fix things up. You can fix the bandages on your fingers, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
oh, okay, there's going to be a lot to this game, a lot of juice, or. But then, obviously, in the demo, all you really do is climb a few walls, put down a piton, um, and then get to the top. So I wanted more from it because I thought once I realized that the gameplay was more or less hold in the direction of the crevice you want to put your limb in, and then push the X button, and then just do that over and over. I thought, okay, if it felt a little like the climbing in Uncharted, where you just hold the control stick towards the wall, press the X button to jump, and it just does it all for you. This one, obviously, you're micromanaging a bit more. You're choosing where to put that limb, but you're still more or less holding in the direction that you want to go and pushing the button. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that it builds on it later on in the game. And also, I should mention I did play on automatic mode. There's that and there's manual mode where I think you have to more carefully place your limb. So maybe that's more of a true sense of what the game is actually meant to play like.
Yeah. You have to select the automatic mode. The game selects your limb automatically. In manual, you choose.
Excellent.
Which is quite interesting. I'm quite tempted to play it like that. That gives you a sort of degree of freedom. It seems like a game where it's as much about planning as it is about the actual doing. Picking the spot where you're going to start and the route you're going to take. And it made it sort of simultaneously relaxing and incredibly stressful.
Yes.
Which is a weird space to be in, but it felt quite nice as a result.
Yeah. There is all the mechanics built into climbing, like stamina, and positioning, that I could have at some point maybe in the far past put into Turnip, but they're entirely different games, and I suppose that in Turnip, because you're constantly going up, grab, down, it's a very tactile way of controlling climbing, if that makes sense. And that's what that one's about. And this one is about, as you said, it's about planning. It's about choosing the correct path and micromanaging your way up this mountain. So it's a very different way of looking at it, but it does look exciting. I feel like I can really sink some time into it.
Yeah.
Compared to the arcade gameplay of Turnip, this one I feel I can really sit down, get comfortable with it. So I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
I think Cairn and Turnip Mountain are great companion games. So that's Cairn. There's a game that you played that I hadn't even heard of. That apparently is one of the most played games at the Next Fest, which speaks volumes to my ignorance. Would you like to tell us more about that one?
Yeah, this is Yap Yap, and I hope I'm saying that right.
I have no idea. You're on your own on this one.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, Yap Yap is a I think up to 6 players co-op game where you're all wizards and you go around procedurally generated castles and destroy things. You pick up vases and throw them to the floor. You can just make a general mess of the place. Carrying on the general trend of these friend co-op games, extraction style games, it's differentiated in that you can voice command your spells, which obviously in a room full of 3 other people like I did, it just turns into an absolute mess on the mics. So if you want to fly for a bit, you have to say up dog, and then so everyone's going up dog, up dog, up dog into the mic. It's a lot of fun in that regard.
This sounds like something that will be a hit.
Absolutely,
yeah. I have no idea about this. Do you know when this game is supposed to be out?
I have absolutely no idea. I think it's been worked on by some other people who did either Peak or the crab game that came out recently, the Dark Souls crab game. What was that called?
Another Crab's Treasure.
Yeah, that's the one. Cracking game, excellent game. Play that.
I have played that.
Oh, such a good game.
That's my first Souls game.
Really? What? Hold on. Stop the interview. You not played Dark Souls?
I've not played Dark Souls.
What are you doing?
I'm waiting for Elden Ring on Switch 2 is what I'm waiting for.
Oh, what? Just gonna play Dark Souls?
Massive counterintuitive decision there. No, that's my first Souls game.
Really? How did you find it?
I loved it.
Good.
I absolutely loved it. It's the sort of the grim fantasy of Dark Souls that just doesn't really appeal to me. It feels quite uninviting. But then I do like hitting things in games. I'm pretty basic. So the idea of this sort of like comedy game where you get to like hit giant crabs with like needles and thimbles and stuff seemed really appealing. And I loved it. I thought it's a great game. It got a fair amount of praise. I don't think it really got enough. I know, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, that and the game they did before that. I know we're going off track here, but that's fine. Going Under. Going Under. What a game! What a fantastic game. That's one of my favorite roguelites like ever. Just so simple, so juicy. And that one didn't get much press either. I liked how sort of clumsy the combat felt in that, which I thought I would hate. But it feels natural, and it feels like you're incentivized and pushed to pick things up and just throw them. Yes. You can't think of weapons as permanent. You're having to improvise all the time. And I quite like that. When going into it, I was quite skeptical about that. But yeah, that's a really fun game. Yeah, it doesn't get I don't think it gets enough flowers for how creative it is within this genre that, like you're saying earlier, it's a genre that people consider like oversaturated now. And there's a lot of like for like games, and I think that one's it stands out in that genre. Absolutely. Yeah, good for them. 2 cracking games. Back to Yap Yap. Yes. Anyway, do you think that game can succeed, like in a world with Peak? Can it find an audience, like in that crowd? I think it will do very well when it comes out. The thing with all these, friend style games, like Content Warning, that was a big one for a bit. Did you ever play that? I've not played Content Warning. I saw it in the Nintendo Direct and thought, I thought, okay, this looks pretty cool. I could see myself playing this. Yeah, these sort of co-op extraction games. There's Repo. There was Phasmophobia is one of the OGs. They always do really, really well when they come out, and it just depends on how long they keep it going after release. Really, how updates and just making sure that it's fresh for repeated runs. So I enjoyed the demo very much. I'm curious to see what the rest of the game does, because that will really make and break it. Cool. So yeah. That's good to hear. You heard it here first. That's the next big friend slop game. Cool. I guess that's the only like crossover we had in what we played. But based on what you said earlier about liking Metroidvanias, I think one game that I played that I would recommend to you, if the demo is still up, I think it is. That would be Constance. Mm-hmm. This is a 2D Metroidvania with a sort of cartoony art style where the world's all based around paint for some reason. And robots also for some reason. I wasn't quite sure what was going on. It is a 2D action-based Metroidvania with some pretty extreme platforming. Combat was it wasn't quite as robust as like other like recent examples in the genre, but it did still feel good to play. And yeah, the platforming challenges some of them were pretty hard stuff. So it did feel good. I'm looking forward to seeing like how that develops. So like if you like Metroidvanias, that'd be my recommendation to you. Yeah, sounds very good. Great. That's kind of everything I had to talk to you about today, Luke. Thank you very much for coming on the show. I appreciate your time. No worries. One more time, could you remind us where people can engage with you online? Yes, I am all over the place. I'm on X or Twitter, either one. I'm on BlueSky. You can find the demo for Turnip Mountain on Steam. It's still up. It will be up until the game comes out. Yeah. There's also a Discord. Yes, I think on the Steam there's a link to our Discord. You can come and chat and do some time trials. Come and talk to us. We're a lovely bunch. Join in. That's great. Thank you very much, Luke. Thank you. My thanks once again to Luke for his time and insights on the development of his game. I am very excited to explore the finished version of this mountain, hopefully, as you've heard, around Christmas time. I encourage you to check out the demo on Steam and wishlist it if you're interested. Best of luck to Luke with finishing his game. Now that was Turnip Mountain, which, spoilers, was my favourite game from this Next Fest. But there were a lot of other good ones. There were a lot of other great ones. We've got a lot of games to get through here, with some definite standouts. So let's get going. I figured that we might as well start big. This is Skate Story. If there is such a thing as a headliner of Steam Next Fest, this felt like it. The long-awaited, much-anticipated skating game about a glass demon trying to eat the moon, the demo for Sam Enge's Skate Story was the first I downloaded, and the first I played, despite having no experience of skating games. You may at this point be tired of hearing praise for the look, vibe, the aesthetics of this game, but honestly, it is worth some attention. Visually, this is a truly singular game. A shimmering, shining, twisted, nocturnal vision of hell as a kind of concrete paradise. Skate Story looks in motion exactly as it looked in the trailers, and the fact that it delivers on the promises those promos made is impressive enough. I like the way that impact, damage and death are handled. Hitting an object feels impactful, a small camera shake and a little sprinkle of glass. Death is even better. Your skater explodes in a hail of glass shards, the camera falling to the ground and rolling around in a manner reminiscent of a failed Jackass stunt. It's a burst of the real in a surreal world that makes the game even more weighty and impactful. It also has a unique tone, and the confidence and commitment to this that it demonstrates from the opening cutscene is a highlight of this demo. Now, with respect to some of the smaller scoped games out there, including in this roundup, the totality of Skate Story feels so elevated, so polished and professional, that it's impossible for it to not stand tall. That tone, highbrow philosophizing mixed with lowbrow bullying and nitpicking, all bundled in dialogue that mixes the surreal and the matter-of-fact, is weird, ominous, and intriguing. It's as fun to read as it is to play. And it is, fortunately, very fun to play. You are a skater. You press X to mount your board. You don't accelerate automatically. You press A to push, B to ollie, and hold the left trigger to tail scrape, to either brake or turn sharply. You need to perform tricks, either to traverse the environment or to defeat gods in combat. To initiate a trick, you hold either the right trigger or a face button. This brings up a little meter on the screen, each a different shape, with a little ball of light moving around it, and a glowing marker placed at some point on that meter. Hit a face button when the little ball of light overlaps with that glowing marker to perform a perfect trick. The exact nature of the shape, and the speed at which that ball of light moves around it, are more complex, or faster, depending on the trick being performed. Immediately understandable in play, constantly challenging in practice. You need to chain together these tricks in tight spaces in order to meet the goals of the game. It's snappy and responsive, and just looks and feels very, very cool. It sounds just as good. The soundtrack is by Blood Cultures, a band whose back catalogue can loosely be described as synthwave, but takes in genres from 60s pop to 70s radio rock to dreamy, driving vaporwave. Their album Luno is the best example of their style, their diversity, but on the basis of this demo, their soundtrack to Skate Story sounds like a work that will have the tightest focus, the biggest sound, and is going to really hit for a lot of people. The game is scheduled to release for macOS, Nintendo Switch 2, PlayStation 5 and Windows on December 8th, 2025. And like that soundtrack, there is a big audience out there for this. That is Skate Story. Another game with a distinctive visual style, though one modelled on something that came before, tidied up with modern technology. This is Motor Slice. Motor Slice is a third-person character action game in the mould of Bayonetta or Max Payne, set in one giant post-human environment known as the Megastructure. You play P, a young woman with bright blue hair, an orange jumpsuit, a floating robot companion, and a really big chainsaw. In this world, the robots have gone haywire, and you need to parkour your way across it and chainsaw your way through them to progress. The end goal of each area appears to be a confrontation with a giant truck or vehicle of some description. If this sounds like Shadow of the Colossus, but stupid, that's because it is. A silly idea presented with just enough commitment to not be entirely off-putting. In terms of gameplay, the platforming is mostly fun. A to jump from platform to pole to ledge to wall, left trigger to initiate an amusingly overlong ground slide, X to motor slice. That is, to thrust your chainsaw into a colour-coded wall and then riding that chainsaw along the stretch of that wall, which is as silly and as fun as it sounds. There is challenge in the platforming, but really, it comes more from the speed at which these obstacles are thrown at you and how quickly, or not, the camera readjusts to your position. The wonky camera, along with the washed out, grainy visuals, are indicative of what developer Regular Studio is going for here. A very voguish PS2 aesthetic, married to some modern mechanics, but for me, still held slightly back by its commitment to that retro vibe. The combat is overly simplistic, and while the demo goes easy on it, you can easily see how the full game may dial up the male gaze on P, on the excuse of, well, that's how it was back then. It's mostly gratifying to play, held back by a bit of apparently intentional jankiness. This has the feel of an objectively 7 out of 10 game that will be a 9 out of 10 for some players. No release date yet, though allegedly expected before the end of 2025. That's Motor Slice. Let's take a left turn away from all this darkness, precise movement, hell, chainsaws and severed limbs. But before we do so, I feel I must preface this next game by stating a few facts. I'm not a dog person. I do not call them doggos. Ochi from Pikmin 4 is a cursed aberration, and while I don't judge anyone who is, I'm really not fussed about whether you can pet the dog or not. This is Dogpile. Dogpile is Suika game with dogs, and also a deck building roguelike. Even now, that description makes my eyes roll so far back in my head that it's distressing to watch, but I must admit to having had fun with this. It plays exactly as it sounds. You are presented with a well, and at the top appear 3 cards, each depicting a different type of dog. You select 1 card at a time and drop it into the well. Match dogs to merge them, creating a new dog. A cosmic semi-horror it's best not to dwell too long on. Poodles become pugs, pugs become sausage dogs, and so on. If your pile of dogs flows over the top of the well, it's game over. So, you get merging those dogs. You earn bones and money from merges. You have to reach a certain amount of bones within a certain amount of turns. Reach that bone goal, and you can visit the dog wash, where you can choose from a random selection of buffs. You can trim a dog to make it smaller, style it up so it earns more bones, and so on. Earn money to spend in the pet shop, from where you can buy boons or new dog cards. Fail to reach the bone goal within a set number of turns, and you have to pick a debuff. Despite the small text and the fact that, like other games in the genre, you spend as much time reading buff descriptions as you do playing the game, it's easy to pick up, and mostly fun to play. I enjoyed Dogpile, with reservations. First, I should say, the look of this game is wonderful. A colourful and vibrant comic book, where the derpy expressions on the dogs are a key part of the charm. It's a look that developer Studio Folly have more or less perfected, and you can see this in their award-winning puzzle game Gubbins, available for iOS and Android, and their daily game, Real Bird Fake Bird. which has unexpectedly found its way into my rotation. My reservations with Dogpile stem simply from the fact that this is a genre of game that I'm mildly cynical about. Exercises in creating addictive, rather than new mechanics, that contribute to a discourse where boasting about playtime is seemingly more important than discussing the play experience. In her review of Balatro, Pam, from the Cannot Be Tamed YouTube channel, said, "Addictive is not the same as good." Those words have stuck with me. It's something to remember. There's no controller support, and the trackpad and touchscreen implementation on Steam Deck didn't feel quite right. And I had a bug on pretty much every run where, after selecting a card, I couldn't drop it into the well, and with no way to resolve this, had to quit the run. I'm also not entirely clear about the challenge level. I never got close to naturally failing a run, and in the demo at least, you can't save, exit, and then resume a run, which is a must for me in any game like this. That said, I'm not going to pretend that I'm above this. I found it really fun to idle away at Dogpile, the general vibe incredibly charming. I'll be keeping an eye on this, to see if Studio Folly can communicate further depth to the gameplay before it releases. That was Dogpile. I mentioned challenge there, so let's jump way over to the other side of the fence, to the most brutal and unforgiving game I played during NextFest. The most brutal and unforgiving game I've played since dropping into the kingdom of Farloom. A top-down dark fantasy boss rush game with a genuinely unique combat system. From Cupdog Games, this is Rubinite. If you like precision combat, precision timing, and dying over and over and over again, this is the game for you. First, the art. Pretty much my favourite kind of pixel art. Crunchy, but detailed. Small sprites with tons of animations. Graphically realised cutscenes, a generally striking presentation. But we have to talk about the combat system. The basics. You can hit X to strike with your weapon. But, in the big picture, that does nothing. The combat in Rubinite is based around the idea of focus. So here we go. You're in a boss fight. You hold a trigger to initiate focus. This brings up a kind of on-screen funnel between you and the boss, with anything outside of that funnel obscured in shadow. While you hold the trigger, a meter builds up over the boss. When it fills, a Roman numeral, 1, appears over their head. Getting close, hit the left trigger, hit a dash attack that deals vastly more damage than a basic strike. Simple in principle. Let's dive into the caveats. First, the fact that the world around the focus area is obscured. Now the game is still playing out while you are in this mode. The boss can still attack, either directly or with weapons from outside of that funnel. If you take a hit, your focus is broken and you need to stop building the meter again. If the boss attacks and you successfully dodge with A, the meter instantly fills, allowing you a strike. You can exit the focus mode at any time, and the boss meter persists, emptying only slowly over time. So, observation, responsiveness, and tactical play are essential. And now, back to that Roman numeral 1. Once you reach that, you can build up the meter again to 2, and once more to 3. Hit an attack after building up 2 meters does more damage than 1, and 3 meters more damage than 2. The game challenges your timing and your nerve. The boss patterns are fast and unforgiving, with dashes, projectiles, and area of effect attacks going off all over the place all the time. It's really hard, but quite obviously, really satisfying to finally take the bosses down. I do, eventually, and the fact that these might be the first 2 bosses in the game is pretty funny. There's a skill tree, a charm system, a hub world to explore and upgrade, all the things that I'm vaguely ashamed to say appeal to me. This is definitely not for everyone, but if you are someone who likes a game with precisely 0 chill, you'll get a lot out of this. Currently scheduled for release in Q2 2026, that's Rubinite. Let's make this a little run of gothic horror stuff. Next, a game that answers the question, What if the last 5 minutes of Inside, but game? This is Reanimal. Reanimal is also the answer to the question that I asked earlier. This is the game that saw the biggest increase in followers, wishlists, and concurrent players. Based on the type of game this is, I was surprised. Still, great for the studio and a good advert for the virtues of Next Fest. Reanimal is a horror adventure game from Tarsier Studios, a developer made up of individuals who were behind Little Nightmares 1 and 2. It is, like those games, and like Limbo and Inside, a game where you move through a dark environment in which some unseen, unknowable horror has occurred, where death is frequent and violent, and where the story unfolds mostly wordlessly through environmental clues and fleetingly glimpsed NPCs. The gameplay revolves mainly around simple puzzle solving, finding keys, switches, secret routes and so on, and queasy chase sequences. I've played enough of these games to be hesitant about this, but what Reanimal offers is the opportunity to control a pair of characters. This allows for slightly more diversity of puzzle design, which I'm interested to see expanded in the full game, as well as for co-op. As it's not hugely demanding in gameplay terms, I can see this being fun to play with someone less familiar with games, as long as they're not adverse to some pretty horrendous body horror stuff. The game does enough to get me over my initial skepticism, and is streamlined enough for me to blow through the demo pretty quickly. I don't think I'm intrigued enough to pick it up on release, as I really can't see how any game in this genre could ever hit me the way that Inside did. But it does a creeping sense of dread very, very well, and I still love seeing story play out in real time, something slithering under a door, or into a vent, as much as I did in other games like this. In the interest of balance, this game, as I mentioned earlier, has been a hit with players. Currently only listed as coming soon. That's Reanimal. Our final trip into the heart of darkness before we emerge into the light. A hardcore platformer with psychological horror theming. This is Love Eternal. The way that theming is established is a textbook example of how to convey tone and mood and create intrigue with extreme economy. You start the game as Maya, a young woman represented by a minimalist sprite, in her family home. Her family call her down for dinner. You, go downstairs to join them. The phone rings, and they ask you to answer. You go back into the hall to answer the phone. There's no one there. You head back to the dining table. There's no one there. Front door is open. You head outside, and suddenly, you're somewhere else. Somewhere far, far worse. That's it. Let's jump. Love Eternal is a game you can understand from watching precisely 5 seconds of gameplay. A die and retry platformer where you manipulate gravity to navigate spike pit filled screen after spike pit filled screen. Hit a button to reverse gravity and send protagonist Maya hurtling towards the ceiling. You can only re-reverse gravity again once your feet are on the ground. Use this to navigate pits and platforms and other obstacles. During the course of the demo, you gain the ability to reset the gravity shift mechanic in mid-air, allowing for puzzles where you have to switch the polarity multiple times in mid-air to progress. Now these are the most fun. It's a short, simple demo that makes for a short, simple recommendation. The movement feels good, the story intriguing, and if you have even a passing interest in 2D platformers, you will enjoy this. Another recommendation to you is the developer, Toby Alden. You should check them out online. They make music, games, and weird, interactive web browser projects. The best place to get to everything is brlka.com, but as ever, everything will be linked in the show notes. Again, currently listed as coming soon. You should wishlist this game if you enjoyed V, Celeste, or any indie platformer really. That was Love Eternal. Out of the dark and into the light. with a funny, whimsical, entirely hand-drawn, top-down action RPG. This is Scrabdackle. This game has been a long time coming. Scrabdackle was funded on Kickstarter at 185% no less in April 2021. Let's try and see what those 551 backers saw. Full disclosure, I wasn't able to meet Scrabdackle exactly as intended, for reasons that had nothing to do with the game or gameplay, so let's get those minor points out of the way. The game isn't yet optimised for Steam Deck, so controller support and text size was an issue, and made playing through the demo a struggle in parts. But this is a solo developer, Jake Friend, who is in the process of creating this intriguing thing that, well, listen to this. Quote, "The magical misadventure of a novice wizard thrown, literally, into the unfamiliar world outside. Go on a sprawling, hand-drawn adventure with spells to study, bosses to best, and a huge, handcrafted world to traverse on the long journey home. Scrabdackle is hand-drawn using traditional animation techniques, with tons of curious creatures to study, characters to squabble with, and tough but fair bosses to overcome. Made by one developer who was maybe a little ambitious about all this." End quote. You might not get that ambition from screenshots, but you do in playing. This is clearly a large, sprawling game, whose look, again, does not necessarily pop off the screen in an image, but certainly does in motion. Scrabdackle is wonderfully scribbly, feeling quite lively as a result. And it's a tired comparison, but it does also feel much like a classic top-down Zelda, only with the dials on every mechanic and system turned up. Combat is tougher, utilising a reticule for aiming and emphasising attack variety, and there's a suggestion that puzzles are going to be set up in one environment and paid off in another. There's a lot of text, a pretty dense notebook you compile. There was too much lore for me from the off, but I did like how quests and side quests were handled and laid out. There were lots, but it was easy to pass. In short, this is an intriguing one and a difficult one to gauge at this point. It's good, with reservations, with a charm and obvious commitment from a seemingly lovely developer that has basically forced me to add it to my wishlist. If you have reservations, please take note that this is being published by Fellow Traveller. They publish the Citizen Sleeper games and 1000 Times Resist, which you may have heard of. They back good games. They generally don't miss. Currently listed as coming soon to early access and intriguingly set to be released in 3 acts. That's Scrabdackle. Something more straightforward now. This is Origament. Origament is a 3D platformer that is only just about a platformer. It's kind of an on-rails progression game. I'm not trying to coin a new genre because that sounds terrible, but I'm finding it hard to articulate what this really is. You play a ball of paper who needs to get from A to B. You start at one end of a small river, a bayou perhaps. You hit a button to unfurl into a paper boat and sail downriver. You gain new transformations as you go, each mapped to a different face button. You simply intuit which transformation is needed for each obstacle, sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly. All very straightforward. But then you reach the end of that environment, that B point. It's a spiral staircase, inscribed with Roman numerals. You go down the staircase and drop into a hole in the centre. What exactly is going on here? I don't know, but I am intrigued. Now, you might die frequently, but this game retains a level of chill, as each obstacle is probably only going to kill you once, likely more out of surprise than challenge. In that respect, it's kind of like Limbo, only less Limbo. The lighting is nice, the game felt pretty good, even if performance on Steam Deck wasn't great. It felt slight, but the second half of the demo introduced a wild swinging pacing that was as welcome as it was unexpected. This appears to be the debut game from Space Source Studio, and is another with no current release date, but if you're interested in a whimsical, oddly calming 3D platformer with a weird sense of humour, maybe check this out. One mode of traversal is being kicked by a horse, so take from that what you will. That's Origament. With an art style reminiscent of Mark of the Ninja Remastered, and gameplay that brings to mind a slightly more forgiving, but no less cerebral version of Katana Zero, the next game we have is Four Strike. Four Strike is a 2D roguelike combat game where you play a ninja who is able to practice each encounter under the conceit of being empowered by the mystical Foresight ability. You are tutorialized various moves from the jump. Light and heavy attacks, a counter that can be used to switch positions, weapons as defense, weapons as offense. This is tactical, this is hard, and this felt brilliant. So you start a run and progress from screen to screen with the ultimate aim of reaching and saving the Emperor and restoring peace to a war-torn kingdom. In play, this is a wonderful excuse for some wonderfully kung fu film adjacent action, where you really do have to think, plan and practice and practice and practice some more before choosing the option to execute. Once you're in that execution phase, damage is permanent. No do-overs. Get killed, gain perks, unlock and build out a skill tree, collect postcards adorned with some of the gorgeous artwork from the game. Your mileage will vary based on your tolerance for precise combat and your tolerance for a roguelike structure that bears more resemblance to Hades than Vampire Survivors, in that you have to be dialed in to the frequency this game is being broadcast at. This is not a second screen game. I always lean towards favouring linear progression, but I did enjoy my time with Four Strike. It felt thoughtfully made. A number of systems developed with care. Well, we have a release date for this, 17th of November 2025. Developed by Skeleton Crew Studio and Thomas Olsen, and published by, oh look, Devolver Digital. That's Four Strike. I mentioned Constance with Luke, so I'll only touch on it briefly here. A pretty Metroidvania based around paint, robots and some tricky platforming, Constance is good, but coming as it does after a pretty high profile game in the same genre, I'm talking about Silksong here, it didn't quite get its hooks in me. Other than the combat feeling comparatively simplistic, but I have no gripes with the game, it's just come at the wrong time. If you're into the look of the game, I still recommend you check it out. At the time of writing, the demo is still live, and at the time of writing, you don't have to wait long for the full game, as it's scheduled for release on the 24th of November. If your Metroidvania itch still needs to be scratched, if you like extended platform challenges that utilise most of your movesight and all of your brain, you'll like this. That's Constance. And now, before we head into the true highs of this Steam Next Fest, I feel compelled to touch on a particularly annoying low. A friend once told me that irony is the death of art. That particular friend is so smart they've probably forgotten they ever said that, but it has stuck with me for years. What we were talking about at the time was the subgenre of media that, quote unquote, knowingly winks at the audience, that says, hey look, we made something bad, but it's deliberate, so that's fine, and it's funny. I find that approach as tiresome as it is tired. I'm not asking for bleeding heart sincerity all the time, I just don't want to be sold something where the impulse to make something that's good forever has been buried beneath the impulse to make something that's funny for 5 minutes. And so, to Bubsy 4D. At least the music is great. Now you know Bubsy by virtue of not knowing him. A relic of the era of the mascot platformer. An era that produced so many bad games it's somewhat concerning that it is even considered an era, where protagonists were characterised by a middle-aged man's idea of what constitutes edgy. In 2025, he's back. Still edgy, but now with unearned, eye-rolling self-referencing in a platform game that feels beneath the talents of its developer, Fabraz, of Demon's Earth fame, and the upcoming, much-anticipated Demon Tides. In those games, movement is good. Here, well, I didn't like it. Bubsy has a lot of moves, designed like Demon Turf as an expressive 3D platformer, where chaining together your various acrobatics is key. But here, the jankiness, the occasional floatiness, the weird feel when you mantle onto a platform, the camera, none of it was quite right, which some will justify as, in air quotes here, being the point. But I don't like fighting against deliberate jankiness, nor having to turn the voiceover volume sliders all the way down to minimise my exposure to the endless, deathly irony-laced self-referencing. I don't think this one is for me. With a planned release date of 2026, That's Bubsy 4D. I spoke about that one before the highlights for a reason, as the first game in this top 3 is the answer to Bubsy 4D. Developed and self-published by Luckshot Games, this is Big Hops. Big Hops is a 3D platformer that mixes the two poles of that genre in a supremely effective way. A collectathon with a focus on expressive movement. A game that captures your attention by bowing to our impulse to find things, but doesn't sacrifice any gameplay. I initially heard about Big Hops through an interview with its lead developer, Chris Wade, on another podcast. He was a charming and personable guy, so over to him for the description here. Quote, Big Hops is a fresh action platformer about a friendly frog named Hop, who's been kidnapped from his forest home by a mischievous spirit called Dis. To make it back to your mum and sister, you'll need to rebuild a broken airship with parts from the Red Desert, Open Ocean and Shattered Mountain. With Big Hops, we want to take a step forward for 3D platformers rather than retreading existing ground. This game is our answer to the question, what could 3D platformers be with deeper, freer movement and emergent gameplay? End quote. Thank you, Chris. This is an excellent, robust demo, introducing the basics, showcasing the broad scope of them, and then fully hooking you with an unexpectedly cosmic about-face in the latter half. I don't want to talk too much about that, as the surprise of it left a big, stupid expression on my face. Now I think I'll leave it at this. Big Hops demonstrates the influence of a specific, popular 3D Mario game in a pronounced but entirely non-derivative way. Hopefully, you're intrigued enough to check it out, but if not, know this. The platforming is challenging, like Love Eternal and Motor Slice and Bubsy, but unlike those latter two, the movement is really on point. A well-chosen moveset that is diverse but not overwhelming, responsive, reliable and never frustrating. You can grab items and platforms with your tongue, you could use certain items to create new platforms, you can dive, roll, wall jump, wall run, you can climb with a stamina meter, and you can bounce. It's also stuff you've seen elsewhere, stuff you expect, but it just felt so clean here, so easy to intuit and execute whilst retaining a satisfying level of challenge. Big Hops was as player-friendly as Bubsy felt player-unfriendly. It's another simplistic and obvious comparison, but it feels like a 3D Mario game if Nintendo made 3D Mario games for a platforming audience, rather than the biggest possible audience. The music is as breezy and fresh and clean as the gameplay, as is the artwork. Colourful, poppy models designed by Steven Sugar, the environment designer for Cartoon Network's Steven Universe. I've really enjoyed this demo, and even though it's another one listed as coming soon, I'm happy for Chris and Luckshot Games to cook with this one. That was Big Hops. Another highlight? Well, it was Cairn. I spoke about that with Luke, so I'll leave it for now, other than to say that that game was the cause of my biggest swing from skepticism to enjoyment. I was unsure on the idea, then completely sold on playing it. Well, actually, that's a lie. My biggest swing from skepticism to enjoyment is the last game we'll talk about today. A turn-based RPG called Hermit and Pig. Developed by Heavy Lunch Studio and originally announced in 2023, Hermit and Pig is a turn-based RPG, a genre I'd normally shy away from simply because of not liking, well, the turn-based bit. In their words, you will need to keep your wits about you as you travel through a path of corporate stooges, weird cultists and uncharacteristically violent locals to hunt for a giant mythical mushroom. You will need to seek clues through anxiety-laden conversations with an eccentric cast of NPCs. Avoid taking cringe damage and level up your social game while you navigate Hermit's social anxiety. You will also forage dozens of unique, real-life and a few not-so-real-life mushrooms to heal, cure ailments and cause status effects. Use truffles for currency and track your collection in a mushroom field guide. But, most importantly for me, they say that you will engage in intense, time-sensitive combat. Race the clock while you input unique key combos for attacks that grow in complexity as you progress through the world. Now that sounds cool. Like I said with Luke, I'm basic. In games, I like hitting things. I don't really like selecting options from a menu. I played through Sea of Stars a couple of years ago, and I really enjoyed it, but despite the concessions that game made to players unfamiliar or unaccustomed to classic turn-based role-players, it didn't unlock the genre for me. I'm not sure Hermit and Pig is going to make me deep dive Final Fantasy either, but not through any lack of quality, but just because it feels so very different to those games. We'll get to why in a sec, because I want to focus on the visuals first. It's pixel art, yes, but very, very pretty. As ever, my poor understanding of the language of animation is going to hold me back here, so I'll just have to draw some comparisons. It's bold and colourful, with noticeable effort put into lighting effects, and reminiscent of the endlessly pretty Eastwood. But where I bounced off that game because of the gameplay, or rather the absence of it, Hermit and Pig hooked me immediately with its novel take on turn-based combat. In Hermit and Pig, battles are handled like this. You are presented with a classic battle screen. It's you versus, let's say, a beetle. You're on a timer. You have a number of moves to select from, such as kick, slap, stomp, or hit with your walking stick. Select one of these and you are required to input a button combo to initiate the attack. Your challenge on each turn is therefore to determine the attack appropriate to the enemy in front of you, then executing it correctly within the time window. You have a book you can consult in battle to review the moves and button combos associated with them. You can have Pig execute a move called Spy, which will cause an icon to appear over the selected enemy indicating which move is effective on them. In the case of this poor doomed beetle, that would be Stomp. Select Stomp, execute the combo, flatten this chump, profit. Easy. And then there will be multiple enemies, each one requiring a different strategy. Sometimes those enemies will change their stance, in turn changing which move will be effective on them. You'll need to use items strategically to heal or attack, and at some point, you'll gain the ability to more fully utilise Pig in combat. The whole package turns turn-based combat from slow and static to fast, frantic and challenging. You've got to think fast and execute faster. It's a great system, and one that had me not dreading random encounters, one that I enjoyed every round of. Also, the story, the humour, the general tone of Hermit and Pig. Grounded without sacrificing whimsy, irreverent without being annoying. Humour in games is a precariously subjective thing, but I did find Hermit and Pig funny. It pokes at conventions, it does a little bit of the Marvel-esque so that happened stuff, but has just enough sincerity to keep it on the right side of history. I was really into this demo, and the full game is due for release on January 22nd, 2026. That should make for a nice early highlight of next year. And I encourage you to check the demo out if you, in the words of the developer, like classic adventure RPGs like Earthbound, but enjoy a more engaging battle experience like Pokemon, Paper Mario, or Street Fighter. That was Hermit and Pig. That was a roundup of the October 2025 Steam Next Fest. What an exciting thing to take part in. Good for players, good for developers, a pretty mind-blowing showcase of the best of what's coming up, of where games are going. Yes, there are already too many games. Yes, Next Fest can be overwhelming. On the first day I had a terrible time, not knowing where to look or where to turn. Then I simply took a step back, remembered that this is supposed to be fun, looked at some recommendations from trusted sources, made a short list of stuff I wanted to play, and just committed to that for a few days. Yes, I missed out on loads of games. Cinecross, Lumines Remastered, all of the indie Star Fox reboots. But it doesn't matter. It was a privilege to play what I did, and some of those experiences are going to be gaming highlights of the next year. An inevitable shout out here to the Gaming in the Wild Discord server, whose Steam Next Fest channel was an essential resource in approaching and discussing the event, and recommendations from it. And finally, one last shout out to the games I played that I will definitely be picking up. Love Eternal, Cairn, Big Hops, and of course, Luke Sanderson's Turnip Mountain. Thanks for listening, and my thanks once more to Luke for his time and insight. in the episode description, you can find a link to the show notes, which will include everything you need to know about the games discussed in this episode. The artwork for Dialogue Tree was designed by Pixel Benny, and you can find the show online at dialoguetree.cc. Talk to you next time.